Welcome to the Death Doula Duo. I'm Jennifer O'Neill.
And I'm Sara Kovash.
And this is where we explore the profound mysteries of life and all things death. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, guys. Well, we are the Death Doula Duo. However, today I am the Death Doula Uno, minus Sara. We miss her, but here we are. And we are here today with Trey Gee. He is a 100% disabled veteran, combat veteran. He found healing through cannabis and ended up opening up dispensaries. He also does intuitive touch healing and meditation. And I am excited to just discuss spirituality and who knows what with him. And so in today's episode, we will talk about his journey and how he's found healing. And so just to start, can you share a little bit about your journey and how you discovered the healing benefits of cannabis, healing touch, and meditation?
Absolutely, yeah. So as you said, I was a combat veteran. I served in Afghanistan in 2002 and 2003. When I came back from Afghanistan, I hit the bottle really hard. I actually even got kicked out of the military for other substances. And I was on a very hard downward spiral for about 10 years. It's, when I got back and after serving and getting kicked out, that just kind of compounded with the PTSD of service over there. And then feeling so worthless once I had been kicked out as well, failing my family. My family's full of veterans. My brother was in the Navy. My sister was a Marine. My grandfather served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and was a true war hero and my hero. And, that's what I'd been trying to live up to. So then at that point, I just felt like such a failure. And really, I just tried to drown my sorrows for about the next 10 years. And then luckily, after my fourth DUI, a judge had pity on me, and I was going to go to prison, and I just asked if I could speak with him, and I simply put, he gave me a little credit for my service and, gave me mandatory AA every day for 2 years, which actually helped me find spirituality again, being able to do it without the religious aspects of it and being able to actually come to it from the aspect of God can be anything. And then from there, I started exploring into cannabis and then other plant medicines from there. And cannabis really started as a journey for me, because I was looking for pain relief. I was a paratrooper when I was in the Army, so I hurt from head to toe at that point in time. And then B, just to slow down my mind. I had a very overactive mind. I'm sure I was probably ADD, ADHD. I've never been diagnosed. I'd never really been too fond of the medical system anyway, so I'd never really put much faith in that, and so I'd never gone and gotten diagnosed. But the PTSD was really rough as well, and I was in a rocky marriage. I loved my wife, but we were fairly toxic together, and so as I started exploring cannabis, it allowed me to find more relief and more healing than any of the medicines they had tried to put me on from the VA and the prescriptions there. But then beyond that, I started diving deeper into, and really it started more on the spiritual journey as my divorce got worse and as my marriage got worse. I started looking for ways to heal myself because I couldn't keep living like that. It was a painful voyage, and once my wife and I split up, that's when I dove into the other plant medicines as well. But that's the journey into cannabis itself as the healer and the teacher allowed me to get into the cannabis industry. I was working in real estate at the time, helping other cannabis businesses set up and find their spaces. And I just showed a space one day, and then the people who were looking at it weren't interested. And, I just said to the universe, I'd really like to do this, because at that point in time, I'd poured so much research into that. And before I joined the military, I was actually studying to be a pharmacist. And so I had very good knowledge of the body and the endocannabinoid system and how everything worked. And so when it was beautiful the way it worked out, just 2 days later after that, I actually got approved for my disability, the 100% disability, and got my back pay. And, I said, I think I'm going to take this as a sign that this is where I'm supposed to be going with this. And so I jumped right in and risked everything I had and poured it all into that business. And then from there, we grew to 4 different dispensaries, and life's taken us on an interesting journey ever since then of things falling apart and coming together. But, I've learned to look at it as just, that's the way that the universe is working things out. It's the way to, that it just had to work out,
Yeah, divine timing. I mean, Sara and I talk about that a lot because of how things worked out for us and when we met. But first, I just want to thank you for your service and
Thank you.
sharing that story with us. And also wanted to let everybody know we have Bridgette with us today, standing in for Sara.
Hey.
Hi, Bridgette.
And so, yeah, I just actually recently read a book about combat veterans, nurses in Vietnam, and that was really eye-opening with what they came back to when they were faced with PTSD, and especially the female nurses, when they would go to try to get any kind of treatment, they were told, well, there are no women in Vietnam, and so, but I'm sure you've had a journey with just dealing with all of that coming back.
And I was actually a combat lifesaver when I was in. So I was infantry. So I was the guy who did all the combat, but I'm also cross-trained as a medic. And I will tell you that aspect of it, those women, that aspect of having other people's lives in your hand is actually, to me, more traumatic than the actual combat itself, right? Like the first thing I ever had to treat when I was there, my team leader got shot and it came down through his shoulder, nicked his artery in his shoulder, ricocheted off the back plate of his IBA, and then came back. That's his body armor, and came back through and took out half of his lung. So we had a sucking chest wound with arterial bleeding, and you've got a life in your hand at that moment in time, and it's like, and you're 19 years old and don't really know shit, and but that there's it's a high stress environment. But it's funny because now looking back on it, right, at that point in time, well, and afterwards, I had become, and it's funny because we talk about spiritual egotism, and there's ego in everything, right? And I had become a trauma egotist at that point in time, right? And so when like, for example, when I'd go to therapy at the VA and they didn't pair me with other combat veterans, just other veterans who hadn't been through stuff like I had, and I'd be like, how could they possibly understand? But then when it comes to later in my life, going through a divorce and realizing that hurt me more than combat ever bothered me, like I didn't even know the depths of the pain which I could experience compared to that, right? And so it humbled me, and I'm grateful for that, right? Because now I see that trauma, no matter who we experience it, how we experience it, right, it's still an individual thing, and it's our feelings, and there's no one type of trauma that is more valid than another trauma. There's no, it's just, it is pain and experience, and we go through it to learn these lessons, right?
Well, and I like how you talked about in the coming back and, how it led you to finding spirituality and, doing that with being a veteran as well as you bringing up going through your divorce. I also, we all go through life, and
right.
And where it leads us is where we're supposed to be.
100%. That's when I was a young guy, I'd been raised in the church, and I actually preached. I actually led the youth group. I'd done all that in the Christian church. And after military, I had found no belief in that anymore. It's just like, how, if there's a God like that, why would they do that, right? And why would they allow stuff like this to happen. And then you come back and through AA, you have those experiences. And that led me more to like Buddhist practices, which actually finally led me back to Christ in the long run and actually understanding, oh, this is what Christ actually means. Like this wasn't, oh, when he says, I am the way, the truth, and the light, there's no way to heaven but through me. The kingdom of heaven is within. It's teaching the same thing that Buddhism taught and everything, but it just gets blown out of proportions and taught in a way that personally I never resonated with. But the good news is like through all that stuff, I was able to actually come back to it and see what Christ actually meant and what that means to me now. And now I have a deeper faith in everything. I'm more of an omnist now, and I don't separate anyone from the other. I find truth in Buddhism and Taoist teachings and the Hermetic principles. Like it doesn't matter what it is, they all to me just say the same thing, right? And just kind of help us go live life.
Right. And I love how the 12-step programs, they don't tell you who God is. They just, get you to kind of start reaching out. And that very similar thing happened with me. And so I love that.
How so did that happen with you, if I may ask?
Well, I think I just got to a point where I was thinking, is this real? And so I started communicating with God and in fact started getting answers and doors started opening similar to what I actually was walking around with a friend late at night and this guy had on a t-shirt. I think it said Jesus on it or something. And so I walked up and asked him just about that verse that you just mentioned, like, what's the deal with Jesus and why do you have to go through him to get to God? And so he kind of took out his Bible and started talking to me. And I was just really relating to him and met a group of people that kind of mentored me and took me in a direction and had a lot of experiences. And, since that time, my beliefs have shifted and changed. And I also really can relate to the just seeing truth in a lot of different things. And so I can definitely appreciate that. How do you think about Christ consciousness?
So to me, the whole thing is based on God lives inside of us, right? So heaven is inside of us. All of these things are divinely inspired, all of these old works, all these old teachings, right? Because it came from inside of us, right? And it's just people of different regions and different territories telling stories in different ways. And in the ancient Hebrew way of telling stories, they used analogies a lot, right? But the story of Christ is the story of the cosmos and the story of inside. So the Hermetic principle, as above, so below, right? So the story of Christ, right? The Son of God equals the sun in the sky. The sun is born in Virgo, born of a virgin on the spring equinox every single year. It dies on the cross at the winter solstice every single year. It goes into the cave for 3 days and there it's resurrected. So there's your reflection of it in the cosmos. And then on the inside, you also have the cross within you. And to die on the cross within is to continually be reborn to yourself, right? And so, and I do this meditation quite often. It's one of my favorite things to do, but the cross, if you're familiar with your chakra systems, right? You're talking about your crown chakra to your heart chakra here. And then you're talking about your third eye to your zill point. And then right above your ears across. So when you do this meditation, you're going to actually focus on those, draw your cross, right? And that forms a 3-dimensional pyramid around your head, actually. The golden triangle, as they call it in Rosicrucianism. But then when you take that and on the cross, if you see crosses depicted a lot of time, they have a little circle right around the center, right? And so that is representative of the cave where you go and you die on the cross. So when you focus on that cross, you'll find that cave. Then you draw all your consciousness inward into that cave instead of, we're always projecting consciousness outward, right? We're always looking out into this world. So you draw everything in, and it kind of recreates a big bang inside yourself. It's emptying yourself out, dying on that cross and becoming a new person. And that to me is the most important of all Christ's teaching, is just to die unto the self. Even in the Bible, it says, if thine eye be single, your body will fill with light. No one ever taught me any of that in church. I don't know where that was, but there's so many messages about it everywhere throughout the season. The Bible's so full of wisdom. Like even when they name the number of light, the number of the children of light, it actually adds up to the speed of light. And this book was written thousands of years ago, right? But it's hidden in coding and everything, just like the book of Revelations when they're talking about the 7-headed dragons and the 7 crowns. That's all in relationship to your 7 chakras. And it's about the rapture is the ascent, right? It's bringing that energy up, the Kundalini energy up into yourself, and it's being reborn and becoming a new man, right? And so that's the way I see it completely, as Christ was teaching us how to be him, right, not to worship him, but hey, this is who we are, just like Buddha taught who we are, and they taught love, and that unconditional love comes from connecting that cave to your heart and living in your heart, not your ego mind.
I love thinking about that as being within. And I'm actually reading a book right now called Mary Magdalene Revealed. And she talks about the New Testament, and she includes Mary's book and a couple of others. And her gospel goes a lot into within. And I love that. So what do you think about the being reborn? Like whenever you do that meditation, do you feel new?
Every day and at any given point in time, right? And it's funny because it's like one of my favorite songs, and I think you and I talked about this a little bit. There's a song by a Band of Horses called The Funeral, but it's every occasion I'll be ready for the funeral, oh, 1 million day funeral. And that's just being willing to die unto yourself at any given moment. And I had some thoughts on this last night, actually, as I was sitting paying attention to some stuff that was going on surrounding me with some friends and some acquaintances, right? And to me, dying to yourself at every moment is simply, we make this shit way too serious, but it is having the mind of a child. It's being a 3-year-old. It is just joyful when you do this, because you're letting go of all past, forgetting everything that's happened in any single moment, and not allowing that to predict your future, predicate it, not allowing it to influence your feelings.
Yeah. And the 12-step program, they talk about starting your day over, because, we have all these feelings and things that happen to us during the day, and why not?
Right. And, it's funny. I see a lot of times in the spiritual circle, a lot of people actually, like when I talk about this stuff, they're like, oh, that's spiritual bypassing. And I'm like, no, it's choosing to start each day anew. It's choosing to, I want to feel good. I want to have a good time. Yeah. I don't know about y'all, but one of my favorite things to do is to have fun. Yeah. And so that's what kids are doing. And I'm blessed to have 3 little boys. And so I get to see it every day in action, right? The mind of a child. They don't get up every day like, oh, no, not today again. It's Monday. Right. Got a case of the Mondays. No, they're up and they're happy and they're joyful and they're playing and they're having fun. And we take on so much conditioning throughout our lives, right? And that's all it is. Dying to yourself every day is just releasing that conditioning and just coming back to the spot. And don't get me wrong, it's not like any of us are perfect at it at any given moment.
No, but it took me a long time to realize that I don't have to earn this. Like, I get to have fun. I get to feel good.
Right. And that's it. That's what life, and that's been my journey for the last few years, is like, oh, this is what fun was like. I had fucking forgotten that, right? Out. Yeah. Like, where'd it go? Oh, I was too busy being stuck in my head. And so that's why meditate, breathe, calm it, and go back to that empty slate. Give over the tithing, give over the 10% of your mind for the 90% of the mind of God and that peaceful space, right? That's what
personalizing Christ's message. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So tell us some other ways that we can take the judgment out of religion and spirituality.
So first off, it's just read what Jesus said. But I mean, love one another, love thy neighbor as you love yourself. But there's the real key words. As you love yourself, you got to love yourself first. And so that's the part we pick up all these conditions from people telling us not to be ourselves. Don't do that. It starts when you're a tiny child, right? Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. But guess what? Do that. Do what makes you happy. Be you. Be you. And the more you actually focus on just becoming, on the internal, just becoming your happy self and your whole self and authentically you, whatever that means, right? Whatever that means, just as long as you're authentically you, then you're going to be able to make that space where it's comfortable for someone to be authentically themselves, no matter what they are. And if you do that without judgment, in the Bible, he talks about the speck in the other man's eye, but you got a plank in your own. So if we're seeing people doing things and judging those, right? Well, what's that telling us? If I see anything outside of myself, what do? I sit here and I ask myself, well, why did I call this in? Because there's only a law of attraction, right? There's not a law of anything else. I mean, there are other laws.
Denial, but no. Just kidding.
Yeah, but the law is attraction, right? So it's like, hey, I see this in the world outside of me. It's something I don't enjoy. Well, what is going on inside of me that I would call that in for that awareness? Because that's why it happens. It's just to make you aware of something inside of you, because the world's a reflection. The world's a mirror. It's I am that I am. Everything's a mirror, right? Everything. And so that's the most important thing we can do is when we see that stuff, right? We step back and we take a look at ourselves.
What's our part? Yeah.
Exactly. And just like yesterday, when I was seeing all that chaos in the world around me, I sat there and I said, well, why is this being presented to me right now? I didn't say, well, why are they going through that? Why are they, oh my God, they're, because I can't control anything anyone else does, right? I can only control me. So why even question it? Why worry about it? Why bother with it? So I saw, I hadn't been actually being steady with my practices of my meditation in the morning like I normally have. I've been off my stuff. I'd been a little bit stressed. And so the whole world started to reflect that to me. I started seeing it in everyone around me. But when you calm that part inside of you, then you don't see that reflection in the world around you. And then you just get to live a lot more peaceful and happy life, right? That's the way of Christ. Is if you are giving love in every way unconditionally, predominantly to yourself first, then you start to see that reflected in the world. That is the heaven here on earth, because you're loving yourself and being authentic in that. And so everything around starts to reflect that. And that's heaven.
So I want to throw it toward Bridgette. Did anything resonate with you, or specifically like the authentically being you? And
there's actually a lot of things that you're saying that are resonating with me. I had a really long phone conversation last night with a addict, and they were kind of telling me about their story and navigating how hard addiction is. And they were telling me about how going through all of the ups and downs and struggles of going through that, I guess that they were finding spirituality again. So that's why I find it really interesting that you're talking about that. And it just really made me think a lot. And the sense of they felt like they wanted to die. They were just in a really god awful place. And they're beginning to find their way back to themselves through a journey of self-love. And I guess that's also intertwined with their spirituality. So there's a lot of things you said that resonated with me. I do think that also to have a childlike mind in many ways is really refreshing, because oftentimes we get so used to just being in our day-to-day, like you were saying, but we don't think about our senses. We're not as in touch with our senses. This is crazy. You can feel textures. You can see different things.
Smell,
you can
taste.
Smell, taste, a lot of the sensitivity that comes, I feel like, with being a child is that they're kind of new to life. So they're exploring things as if they were for the first time. And I think that would be a really cool thing to practice in our day-to-day lives, is to be excited about life and to be excited about the fact that we get to even experience where we are now. And there's a lyric that I really like, and it says, "Why are you looking for the harmony? There's harmony in everything." And I feel like, I don't know, I guess I just get kind of geeky about living. I love life.
Right.
And I just wish, I guess everybody, including myself, could more consistently tap into that exploration like we had when we were young again.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you brought that up because I was a few years ago introduced to a meditation where you basically just stop and what can you hear? What can you see? What can you smell? What can you taste? What can you touch? And just really a good way to bring you back into the moment of forgetting
grounding.
about. Yeah.
It's cool. It's exciting. How cool is that we can
we are here
interact with all these different elements of being human.
And I heard the other day,
It's
not
beautiful.
everybody gets to come here. There's a waiting list to get to Earth.
Right.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe that. And I'm grateful to be here, even though I've been through hell in this lifetime. Mm-hmm. Also experienced some of the most amazing things you could ever experience, right? Like I had trips to Ireland, just fun stuff with friends and family and the love you get to have with your kids and everything. And I wanted to just because you made me think of it while I have a moment, huge shout out to Grayson Trice. I have just started his another course with him, and it's I did the 6 weeks to the Secret Smile with him, practicing Qigong. But that's one of the things that really got me to really reflect upon child's mind and beginner's mind, because these are the two of the main core tenets, right, of the practice of Qigong, is to come into it with a child's mind and a beginner's mind. And if you try to come at life in that way, right, if you just try and come at life with that empty slate, like she just said, and it's just
gratitude and
it makes it so much better, right? It's like, I'm not judging this before I come into it. I'm just like curious as to what's going to happen next. Like what's coming? This could be entertaining, And if you have that mindset going in, it makes it so much, because we're always creating everything, right? Like our emotions create what we're experiencing. And so that blank slate mindset of that child's mind or beginner's mind is just so freeing.
And very similar, to what you feel when you come out of a meditation session. Like
100%.
I remember when I used to live in Los Angeles, I remember being at the beach and just closing my eyes and meditating for a while. And then I would just really focus on my breathing. And as soon as I opened my eyes again, it would be like seeing the ocean 10 times more beautiful than it was just 10 minutes ago or however long. And being like, oh my gosh, this is insane. It's like seeing for the first time. It's so cool. Life is just so cool. I don't know. I'm very thankful.
Same.
To be here and to be able to have a chance to write my own story and have fun. Like you said, just have fun.
Yeah. And so what are some other ways that, unless we've covered them, but I'm sure there are always more, but Christ's message and just healing from religious wounds? And
so this is one thing that I would like to see more often in the spiritual community, that just is a reminder. But when a lot of these people who have these wounds, right, take a moment and reflect on that, because that wound inside gets projected right back very often. And that happens in the way of Christianity and everything about it and all these things, right? But as long as we're feeling that way, we're still harboring that wound, right? And then reprojecting it out into everything else. Healing is feeling and processing and letting go, right? It is a choice. And some people are going to get real offended at the fact that I say that, but holding on to hurt is a choice. I could sit here and hold on to hurt about my ex-wife or about what I'd experienced in the military and everything, but the only person that's hurting is me. Mm-hmm. And well, I say that, but it also hurts everyone around you, because hurt people, right? And so that's learning to look at it and say, hey, okay, so this was taught in a way that I didn't like, because I personal beliefs, I believe it was corrupted and taught in a way on purpose to intervene between man knowing himself. That's why I think that certain books weren't put in the Bible, right? I do believe that as well. But I also know that you're not going to find joy in holding on to the hatred, and you're never going to solve the problem in doing that either. The only way to be better than something is to not do exactly what it did to you, right? And so when we hold on to that suffering and that wound in there, then we project it back onto it, and we don't help the world heal. We just continue that gap and that division. And I see it so often in the spiritual community, how they're just like, oh, no, nothing to do with any of that. But just because some people got it wrong, and a lot of them, right, doesn't mean that are we going to become the people who start burning Christians at the stake or something? No, I don't. That's not how we heal the world. But I think we're just at a time and space. For example, right now it's the age of Aquarius, right? One of the things in the Bible when they're talking about, and this is just a way I read the Bible, but when Jesus is preparing for the Last Supper, it's told in a parable, but he says, when you see a man bearing a pitcher of water, you go into that house and there you go to the top floor and I'll have a room prepared to meet you. Well, to me, I interpret that as the water bearer is the age of Aquarius, which is now, which is Christ's return. That room at the top of the house, sit and meditate and pull that up. And there Christ has a room to meet us so you can meet him and talk to him if you really want to kind of heal that, right?
Well, yeah. And I mean, what I was thinking when you were talking and describing that is just how, denial can be like a warm blanket, keep us safe, and it can be hard to confront some of that stuff.
It is. And it's painful to sit with emotions that we judge negatively, right? But here's the simple thing. If you stop judging them, everything we resist persists, right? Everything you push against is going to keep showing up in your life. And so if you hold on to that trigger and you keep pushing against it, guess what's going to happen? You're going to see it over and over again. It's just going to keep pissing you off, right? And so learning to just sit with feelings and not judge them, right? Hey there, whacked my mic. But learning to just sit with those feelings and just be present with them with no judgment. Like, hey, emotions are simply guides, right? It's just, hey, I feel bad. Why do I feel bad? As Abraham says, because you're not in alignment with your higher self. So what's that telling me? I feel bad about this. So let's look at it and see where we need to tweak it so I can feel better about it. Let's sit with that emotion. What's it trying to tell me? Why do I feel bad? Because that wasn't the truth, and you know it. And that's the difference in the resonance within, in my opinion, in those cases, is because we know that what was happening there wasn't the right thing, that judgment, that all that. So we hold on and harbor that. But if we continue that judgment, we're just doing the same thing again, right? And so sit with it and be easy with it and learn not to judge it and let people. This was something that came to me very deeply in meditation actually last night, but what is unconditional love, right? Unconditional love is saying, you know what? I love you no matter what you're doing. And people look at me when I'm crazy when I say that, but like learning to love like that is simply being love, choosing to feel love at any given point in time. It's your internal world. It's not about what anything else outside of you is doing.
What they can give you and
and like,
rescue you from. And
learning to do that with my ex-wife was one of the biggest challenges of my life, right? Because I had this vision of where my life was. And, I thought I was on some twin flame journey. I thought she was destined to be in my life forever. But you know what makes me way happier than sitting here pining over her and wanting her to come back and love me is to love her exactly as she is and say, hey, I hope you find happiness.
Go do your thing.
Yeah. And that's freedom right there. That is the freedom. That's living from your soul perspective, right? And so if you can do that and practice that more and more, it's not easy in the beginning. I'm not going to pretend it is, but as you do it more and more, it becomes more easy because holy shit, you feel better. And everybody wants to feel better.
And we get to that fun feeling good place.
Right.
And I love how you talked about just self-awareness and coming in, being curious with yourself of what's going on. And I always like to, and I like that Abraham says this too, if all else fails, take a nap.
Right.
Sometimes we just need a reset.
I'm always down for a good nap. Count me in.
So if we're going to, at some point during this death doula show, turn it to death, and we think about death from a perspective of living with no attachments, contemplating death and life as part of the human experience. Do you have thoughts on that?
I think that contemplating death is one of the best things that you can do for yourself, because if you actually sit there and think about the fact that you have no idea when you're going to die, and this is where I've been fortunate in life, is I have almost died more times than I can count. Just to give you a couple of examples, I had a 3/4 ton truck run both tires over my face when I was 18 years old. I was out in a pasture and had a seizure, and they couldn't see me because the grass was too tall. And so then I got hit by a 3-wheeler. That's how they found me. They thought they had run over a log. When I was 8 years old, I had a wasp sting me on the leg. And when I yelled, one flew in my mouth and stung me on the tongue. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, random stupid shit, y'all. Like, I have been through, and then of course there's the military stuff. Then there's all the stuff I did to myself, which was a plethora in my youth. But when you've faced and confronted that fear of death, right, and when you've looked at it and understanding that you're not immortal in this life, here's the thing: understand you are immortal as a soul. Don't fear death, but know that it could happen at any moment, and use that to live your life more fully. If you are honest with yourself and can tell yourself that, hey, every fear to me is just in a fear of death in one way or another when it really gets down to it, right? But if you can learn to overcome that and see it from a soul perspective, and then look at it from the perspective of, I don't know if I've got tomorrow, I don't know if I'll be here, then you can learn to live life more fully. And who wants to hold on to a whole bunch of shit from their past when we don't even know if we're going to have tomorrow, right? So it helps bring you into the present moment if you're actually real with yourself about the fact that you could die at any given moment. And that's also what dying unto yourself at any given moment is. It's saying, hey, this is every single second of this life, I have a chance to choose who I'm going to be at any given moment. Right now, I can choose to be exactly who I want to be. And I can change every circumstance in my life by just changing what I believe. And so to me, when you're willing to look at death as in that manner, then that's freedom, right? Because then you're going to actually choose to do the things you want to do. Like, oh man, I could die tomorrow. Do I really want to keep doing this 9-to-5 job that I'm miserable at? No, I want to chase my passion. I want to chase what I'm thinking about. I may die tomorrow. Do I really want to stay in this ridiculously unhappy marriage? No, I want to go find joy and happiness. Whatever it is that you want to do, if you look at it from the fact that I could die tomorrow, it gives you motivation to go and do it today.
Well, and I'm starting to think about it even in terms of what's really on my bucket list. Oh crap, I better get to doing that because I'm at that kind of halfway point. So, but the no attachment part always is a little bit difficult for me. But I have a friend who talks about that a lot, and he's probably about 20 years older than me, and not that matters, but I just, I have my attachments, but I know we all do. So that's definitely a spiritual lesson I can see in my future.
Right.
So as we wrap up, I kind of had a thought, because I know we were talking about music earlier, and I don't know that any of us would choose to have, a funeral or a memorial, but if you could choose a song for your funeral or memorial or whatever, what would it be?
It's my life. It's better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. Nice. That's it. That's Garth Brooks' The Dance has been my song for my funeral for so long, and it's just, that song speaks to me. Like, it's like, oh, we may have hard times, we may have all that, but how would we know the joy? How would we know the experience if we don't get out there and dance, if we don't get out there and tango with life, if we don't get out there and feel it and be part of it and go jump out of a damn airplane, go do whatever it is you want to do that brings you joy. But, you know, if you just sit on the sidelines, you're missing out. This whole life is about the experience. Go do shit.
Yeah.
Go
I love that.
do it.
I love it. I don't know that I'll sing mine, but
Please do.
Oh, you guys would have to join me. It's Here Comes the Sun.
Oh, okay.
I just
Little darling.
Yeah.
It's been years since
But
I can't remember the words
I like
right
the
now.
chorus. Here comes
Here's
the sun. Da-da-da-da-da.
Here comes the sun, and I said it's all right.
Nice.
I like
Yes.
What you got over here?
To be honest, I don't know if I've actually really thought about a song that I would play, but the only thing I can think of is like at what point in my life did I feel the most alive? And when was I like the happiest? So I think a lot about nostalgia, I guess. And when I was younger and like, I really liked listening to this Japanese artist named Utada Hikaru.
I like it.
And I don't even know what she says in the song, like, because I don't speak
That's all right.
Japanese. But I just know I really love that song like crazy. Like
Japanese
I still love
is such a beautiful
That is
language.
awesome.
I still love the song, and the music video is really cool, and it was like in this like beautiful fantasy world. And anyway, so I'd probably pick Traveling by Utada Hikaru.
Ooh, nice.
I don't know what she says, but damn, that song is beautiful.
I gotta listen to this. I listen to so much Japanese music, which is funny.
Oh,
Like that
really?
you say that. Like that's all my kids listen to all the time. They're really big into anime, and so
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm gonna have to check this out because
Totally.
Yeah, I gotta
Japanese is
check it
a
out,
way
too.
prettier language than English.
Yeah,
Is all I'm saying.
Well, I've looked up like translated lyrics from like popular Japanese songs, and their lyrics are insanely
so
deep
good.
and beautiful and very intricate,
Right.
and it's like so poetic. And I'm like, holy cow!
Agreed.
I mean, at least
Yeah.
the songs that I was looking up were
My
yeah,
lyrics are just as
beautiful.
deep.
There's so much beautiful Japanese music. So
Right.
there you go.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
my
gonna
goal is
check
to
it
bring
out.
some of that to American music with lyrics when I finally start releasing music at some point. But that's I'm a lyricist through and through, and that's why I love Japanese music, because you're right, it is deep, and they sing about real stuff.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, they do.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Bridgette. And thank you, Trey,
Mhm.
so much for sharing your time. If people wanted to contact you, is there anywhere that they could?
So yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Trey Gee _Bloom, TREYGEE_Bloom. You can also Walking a Path with a couple of underscores in there somewhere. I don't even know. You can find me on Facebook if you want to reach out. You can catch me just around at the collective stuff occasionally, just whatever. But yeah, feel free to hit me up anytime if you just want to talk, hang out. I like talking to people.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And stay tuned for our next episode where we uncover more profound insights and heartwarming narratives to help us in our journey of life and death.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us as we journey through life's most enigmatic reality. I'm Jennifer O'Neill,
And I'm Sara Kovash,
and we are
the Death Doula Duo.
The Death Doula Duo is brought to you by the Possibilities Podcast platform.
If you have comments, suggestions, or would like to be on the show, please email us at thedeathdouladuo@gmail.com. Until next time, may all your discussions about death be lively.